Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are actually going to be talking about the 2020 US presidential election because US intelligence has weighed in with their findings on interference. And I think you're going to find this really interesting, though not necessarily for the reasons you think. Now, here's what's going on. The Department of Justice, FBI, DHS, and CISA, that's the cybersecurity wing of the DHS, just released a report entitled Joint Report of the Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security on foreign interference targeting election infrastructure or political organization, campaign, or candidate infrastructure related to the 2020 U.S. federal elections. And guys, you got to make that a little more snappier. That's a mouthful. Now, basically, my sources for reporting on this, and this is very specific, are CNN and also Cyberscoop, and see if you can tell where one leaves off and the other one picks up. Now, here's what's going on. Russian, Chinese, and Iranian government-linked operatives were active in advance of the 2020 U.S. presidential election, but their intrusions into the U.S. organizations did not compromise the integrity of the vote, according to U.S. officials talking today. Now, the report released Tuesday by the Departments of Homeland Security and Justice point to growing interest by an array of foreign actors to influence U.S. voters, but, quote, found no evidence that any foreign government-affiliated actor manipulated election results or otherwise compromised the integrity of the 2020 vote. Now, the playbook of Russia in 2016 is out there, according to Jeffrey Hale, head of the CISA's Election Security Initiative, talking in an interview, and I quote him again. Even in a very secure election, there are incidents, and in this cycle, you saw multiple nation states involved. Now, in separate findings made public on Tuesday, the U.S. intelligence community said Russia and Iran had conducted multifaceted operations to try and influence the vote, and that China had quote-unquote, quote, considered, but did not deploy, end quote, such influence efforts. The DHS and DOJ report focused on any material impact the foreign operatives had on election infrastructure and political organizations, while the intelligence agency's report examined the interference, basically the interference activity as a whole. Now, the U.S. Intelligence Committee also said in this landmark report that the Russian government had meddled in the 2020 election with an influence campaign, quote-unquote, denigrating President Joe Biden and, quote-unquote, supporting former President Donald Trump, detailing a massive disinformation push that successfully targeted and was openly embraced by Trump's allies. Russia's objectives were not limited to hurting Biden's candidacy and aiding Trump's re-election bid, the report says, as U.S. intelligence found that Moscow also sought to undermine the, quote, public confidence in the electoral process and exacerbate socio-political divisions in the U.S. Now, overall, the report released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence provides the most comprehensive assessment of foreign threats to the 2020 election to date, detailing extensive influence operations by U.S. adversaries, including Russia and Iran, that sought to undermine the confidence in the democratic process, in addition to targeting specific presidential candidates. The report also said the most aggressive foreign attempt to quote-unquote undercut Trump came from Iran, but Iran didn't, quote, actively, end quote, promote Biden, and their efforts were smaller than Russia's operation. But while the report concludes that multiple foreign adversaries did attempt to interfere, it also notes that there were, quote, no indications that any foreign actor attempted to alter any technical aspect of the voting process in the 2020 election, including voter registration, casting ballots, vote tabulation, or reporting results. And this, what I just read to you, basically verbatim from these two news organizations, is why we have a divided landscape when it comes to information and news. Now, did you catch where Cyberscoop, which I started with, stopped and CNN started? Now, here's the thing. Both of these news outlets reported the events accurately, but there's a difference in both style and delivery and also injection of opinion. Which one seemed more balanced to you if you can figure out where Cyberscoop stopped and CNN started? Now, I bring this up not because I'm hounding on either one. I have a bit of a relationship with CNN given that I write for one of their commentators. But I think this brings basically a couple of interesting points to light because this sheds, I think, basically light on two issues, no matter which source you are sitting here reading. One, foreign actors are continuing to run influence campaigns to sway or divide the electorate. As I mentioned, both Cyberscoop and CNN were reporting accurately here, despite, let's say, the injection of other things. The second point is that they're not actually trying to change vote totals. And so the meta message here in this report was, yes, they ran influence campaigns, they tried to change, people's minds, but they didn't actually try to hack in and change voter rolls, voter counts, and all of that. And so basically the message that we should be taking from this report, as well as the reporting on the report from various news outlets out there, is why change a vote total when you can change society for the worst? Despite efforts of Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms starting to police misinformation, and they are way, way late to that game, it's clearly not enough. So whether you're getting your news from the right or the left or the middle or wherever it is, there is going to possibly be accurate information there, mixed in possibly with hyperbole, mixed in with a slant. But the one thing that we cannot deny is that there are those out there that are attempting not to influence an election by changing voter totals. They're out there to influence an election by simply changing your mind. And that, I think, is a very serious thing. I have done a lot of research, a lot of study. I have personally gone through the 3,500 to 4,000 ads from the 2016 election, from the Internet Research Agency out of Russia, and it is very telling if you actually look at the evidence that is collected. This is a huge, huge problem that we have. But when we have news reporting sources that are either, let's say, from the right or from the left and not reporting accurately, and I gave you a comparison one of here that I think was played down the middle, and more that was one that appeared to be more adversarial and less fact-stating, although both were accurate. I cannot stress that enough. Both CNN and Cyberscoop were accurate in the actual facts that they reported. That basically tends to divide an electorate. And I think that's a huge, huge problem. If we are going to come together, if we are going to understand, we have to agree on a common set of facts. And those common set of facts are simply this. Our intelligence reporting agencies are telling us that people are trying to influence what we think, not necessarily influence and change physically an election. And by virtue of influencing us, they can change an election and they can change society for worse. That is something I think we all need to take to heart in this report. I think this is very revealing. I urge all of you to read it in its entirety as I did. And that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.